The basics of Masonic education. No two individuals are the same, have had the same experiences in life, form the same conclusions on receipt of material, and the needs of no two lodges are the same either. Therefore, a set educational premise, strict and stringent, and suited to the character and person who is entering the craft, and the needs of the lodge which he is becoming a member of, can never be achieved from a top-down approach. If we use this simple rule in Masonic education, we realize Masonic education should be proper and pure. By proper, we refer to its etymology. Proper, from the Middle English, from the Old French propre, from Latin proprius, meaning one's own or special. By pure, comes from the Middle English, from the Old French pur, or pure, from the Latin purus, meaning clean, clear, unmixed, unadorned, chaste, or undefiled. Very simply, every form of education should be determined based on two factors when a candidate is entering into the craft. Number one, what are the needs of your individual lodge? And number two, what does the candidate fall short in their needs to which Masonry can help them grow? That's right, your lodge and its needs matter, and the candidate should understand that they are expected to be there and be active. They can pursue their interest on their own time, but they are also expected to play their role in making the lodge prosper. Now let us return to the idea of a proper and pure Masonic education. One of the things that I've noticed over the years is the first things that should be taught to every person coming into Freemasonry, shown and or explained to the candidates, is in many situations being ignored completely. So for that, we're going to go over the very basic things that all candidates should know before they even enter into the lodge room for the very first time. Number one, all Masonic education is an opinion. Nothing in Freemasonry is set in stone. Rituals are different, wording has been changed, and much education has been simplified to the lowest common denominator that could possibly enter into the lodge. Someone offering a new or different opinion is neither wrong nor correct, and likewise your opinion is neither wrong nor correct. It's all an opinion. Even so-called heavily researched works such as in the field of Masonic history, just like in the works of many real-world historians, are littered with opinions and carefully prescribed outlines made to bring the reader to a desired conclusion. They leave out much information. There is much information that is still unknown or undocumented, and thusly there is a goal in the writing set about to bring a specific conclusion, both directly and indirectly placing in some information while leaving out other pieces of pertinent information. Number two, your ideas are your opinions based on your experiences, your beliefs, and your moral code. This is one of the very biggest things you find most Masons fail to understand. The world is not a place in solidarity. Neither are the individuals who inhabit it. I am an experienced, well-traveled man. I have lived in 3 countries with 3 completely contradictory types of government: parliamentary socialism, totalitarianism, and democratic republic. I add to that I have traveled to and either worked in or just visited another 54 countries on 6 different continents. When you hear the phrase wisdom is knowledge plus experience, I think I have garnered the right to speak on the topic. And while I may say something you don't agree with, it no less makes my beliefs or moral code superior nor inferior to your beliefs and your moral code. It is a difference in opinion based on our 2 different worlds and life experiences. What it might do, however, is give me the wisdom, especially if a person I am speaking with or trying to educate can't even begin to compare experiences or knowledge outside of their own English-speaking cultures, to open your mind to something you are not yet aware of. The United States is a perfect example of this, and while my next statement may annoy many Americans, hear it out, and I bet in the end it'll make a lot more sense and you might actually agree with it. I get asked in many countries I do or have worked in to explain American culture to them, and I respond with the following. America has no singular culture. It instead has a way of life. Now, this is usually met with a lot of baffled eyes. Many of the countries I go to and have been asked this in are primarily homogeneous over the vast majority of their population. This allows the establishment of a specific religion or religious philosophy, set government propaganda, one-frame thought, and narrow-mindedness to exist within the national border for the majority of the people who will probably never travel outside of it or not travel outside of it very often. America is unique from such countries. It does not make people change. It allows them to both remain the same and change at their own desire. And they naturally do this over multiple generations. If a family comes from Ireland, they will, for 2 to 4 generations, exhibit the normality of Irish culture and behavior in life. If they come from Italy, they will act Italian for the same. If they're from Mexico, they will exhibit the same habits as they would in Mexico for the same period of time. From China, Chinese; from Japan, Japanese; from Australia, Australian, etc., etc. Over time, they will develop American ideals, more American behaviors, and a more American normality. But prior to that, they will display the various stereotypes we have all heard over the years. Why? Because while stereotypes are abnormal, uncouth behavior to you and me, they are normal and socially acceptable behaviors, possibly even proper manners, in their native cultures. And since such things are learned in the home, the patriarchs and the matriarchs are teaching the children what they know, their native cultures. Add to that the very fact that America has such a variety of religions, differences in laws, morals, mores, norms, and taboos, openness of political beliefs, and the ability to discuss them, and you make way for a society and nation that is very difficult to understand elsewhere in the world, in nations which consist of a more homogeneous society. If we merely explain from the very beginning that your ideas are your opinions, based on your experiences, your beliefs, and your moral code, you'd probably see much fewer arguments and much more understanding in a group of people which consist of people from every country, sect, and opinion. Number 3, the information I give you is just a starting point. Another thing that should be coveted, but is often lost to the fact that any and all information is made to pique your interest and go out and search for the truth on your own. It's not the end-all to all research. It's not the definitive answer, yet so many take it as such. Even more to the point, it just as well may straight out be wrong information to begin with. Information gotten from poor sources or just plain old fantasy. Take for example the opinion of Manly P. Hall. While they're entertaining to read or listen to, much was out of date or disproven before his work was even first published. But yet, it's still amazing how many quote it as a fact versus an opinion. Number 4, stop allowing nonsense in discussions. One of the biggest issues is that Masonry should transcend the ridiculousness of the real world. The real world has instead infiltrated Masonry. A recent article making its way around is about a Mason whose religious background is Muslim, where he claimed he left the fraternity because his brothers were racist. The articles were second-hand summaries of the original article and relied on the fact that most people would not go back and read the original. If they did, they would have learned from his date of initiation to his demitting, and the dates were in the original article, he had been a Mason for a whopping 3 years. During that time, he went through everything that he could, from the Scottish Rite to the York Rite to the Shrine and the Blue Lodge. He wasn't a Mason long enough to even begin to understand what Masonry was. Yet he thought himself a superior scholar, and claimed he left because his brethren wrote racist anti-Muslim rants on their personal Facebook pages. So let's go through a few points that you could identify in the original article, but were left out on the secondary articles. Number 1, he was not a Mason for very long, and probably didn't know, let alone understand, 1% of what Masonry had to offer. Number 2, he occupied his time being a joiner of everything without using patience to absorb and understand its teachings. Number 3, he fancied himself a scholar and a teacher and failed to understand that he was still a student. Number 4, he didn't like opinions which differed from his own. Number 5, he claimed racism over a religious difference, which has absolutely nothing to do with race. Number 6, he was opposed to others' First Amendment rights if they conflicted with his opinions, thereby not showing the respect for the ultimate law of the land, the U.S. Constitution. And these are just a few of the more prominent facts of his own article. It was a nonsense article written by a foolish child who had yet to learn, but fancied himself a wise educator. Even worse, it was rewritten and floated around as an agenda, instead of someone calling out the nonsense spouted off in the article. After all, aren't we Masons to neither palliate nor aggravate the offenses of our brethren? And in this case, there were many offenses which were both palliated and aggravated merely to push a political agenda. Number 5. Open debate and discussion needs to be encouraged, not dissuaded, and false arguments and fallacies immediately stopped. The entirety of the second degree is on education, discussion, and intellectual growth. Unfortunately for most, it's been relegated as a filler degree with little to no importance and to be rushed and passed through as quickly as possible. Furthermore, it, plus Masonry in general, should be teaching us how to talk, debate, and argue in a sophisticated manner, using fact and not fiction to forward our ideas. Between brothers, we should be able to have sophisticated discussions and be able to work out and better our individual arguments without being offended by someone, as so often happens in the outside world. However, there are too many in Masonry today who would prefer automatons or sheep gouging at the trough. Even worse, those who may have an enlightened and possibly more knowledgeable opinion may just sit in the background afraid to speak, purely out of fear of whatever consequences they imagine they might receive for thinking in a different way. It's a good thing America's founding fathers didn't fear that. This is unfair to our Masons and juxtaposed to what it is that we should be offering. Number 6. Masonry is not a group of like-minded men. This is the most ridiculous statement a Mason can make. A lodge very well may represent a group of brothers with similar backgrounds and experiences, a sense of community for their community, but Masonry is far from that. According to Bessel.org, there are 79 countries around the world with independent operating Grand Lodges of their very own. Do you really think the Mason from Andorra thinks the same as the Mason from Taiwan, or from Chile, or from Tasmania? I bet you there is a world of difference in the thinking of a Mason from California to a Mason from North Dakota. We've all heard the sorry attempts to rationalize this statement of misinformation too. Our belief in a supreme being, well, something that is believed by the vast majority of the world's population. We have similar interest. Yeah, so does your local racquetball club and YMCA. We make men want to be better. Well, actually, a stable family life does that. We have a love of community service. So does your local Kiwanis. So, if we're not a group of like-minded men, what are we? And there's where you get to the real substance. We are a group of individuals who all come from different backgrounds and walks of life, with our own unique interest, who come together to learn, through an ancient tool, how we can improve ourselves beyond what we imagine possible, while doing so with other individuals we otherwise would have probably never met, to further open our minds and share our life experiences. Now, isn't that a far cry from what we have been being taught? Number 7. The first rule of social media: most Masons are ignoramuses. Now, I know what you're thinking. How dare you say such a thing about your brethren? Well, simply put, because it's true and you know it. How much nonsense do you see scroll across a social media page? People calling people unmasonic for no reason, accusing brothers of being clandestine, calling people racist or bigoted or sexist or whatever. My personal favorite is the grandstander who attacks and has a couple of lapdogs always backing them up, so you can't even support an idea because what you're saying is being diluted in a sea of complete nonsense. It should be explained that social media is a tool, and that all the previous points should be considered. You don't know who you're speaking with many times. You don't know where they come from or what they do or do not know, and you're not necessarily more knowledgeable. But then again, you may also be worlds ahead of them. Number 8. Let them know they don't know the meanings of the words. There's nothing more obnoxious than listening to someone interchange modern, or worse, their own made-up definition, to rationalize doing something that's the opposite of what should be done. We know that the ritual and the words chosen were not based on 20th century language. We know most people have no idea what many of the words actually mean. Be realistic. How many Masons immediately know what vicissitudes or inculcate means? How many know that treason refers to a loss of fidelity and not action against your nation? Or that charity directly refers to what you owe to your brothers, your family, and your friends, and not dropping a $5 in the almoner's box for a stranger? You'd be amazed what happens when you get people to start utilizing the dictionary, and how much more their worldview and perspective opens up when they understand what the words really mean. Number 9. Without the foundation, you will never be able to create a durable house. All education in every field of study follows 3 foundational elements. Number 1, to know the information. Number 2, to understand the information. And number 3, to utilize and apply and develop the information. The less you know of each preceding level, the less you will ever reach in the proceeding level. Step 1, to know, is the rote memorization. Be it memorizing the alphabet to learn how to read, or addition, subtraction, multiplication, division tables to do math and eventually science or engineering, or to memorize people, places, and things and dates to learn our history, or your ritual to know what you're actually supposed to learn in Masonry. These things are the foundation on which all higher levels of education are supported. If you only learn a portion of these basics, that portion you have learned will decrease exponentially as you try to advance to the higher levels of learning and advance in your understanding of the material. And finally, number 10, ethics is the key to Masonic education. Ethics is moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. The entirety of the Masonic teachings revolve around the simple principle. All other things are secondary or tertiary. This has been lost from the American and many other educational curriculums around the world, and this simple and basic concept is what makes Masonry still profound and pertinent today. These are mine. Now tell me what you think down below. Do you agree or do you disagree with what I've come up with? Let me know your thoughts. I look forward to reading them later.